Mike, it says we're live.
Then it must be right because
It must
computers
be.
don't lie.
Hey, by the way, speaking of computers, I've sort of picked up a side gig, and I'm really enjoying it.
Programming now?
I've been helping, I've been helping people get vaccine appointments.
Oh,
It's
really?
been fun, yeah,
By
yeah.
hacking the website and jumping the queue? And how'd you do this? Are you SQL
Uh,
injecting?
yeah, you know me, the marketing guy always knows how to do that.
Hmm.
No, when the website says don't click refresh, I hit refresh. It's a button. It's called F5. Then there's a Chrome extension that does it too. So hey,
Okay.
um, and I know that you love when I say I install Chrome extensions on my computer.
Personal computer, not the work computer, right?
That's right, on my personal computer, but
Good.
still. Blah, blah, blah. So speaking of the pandemic,
Hmm.
how's the pandemic going for you, Mike?
I think it's going the same way it is for everybody, you know? There's a lot of things I miss. I miss conferences. I miss crappy airplane Wi-Fi. I miss three-dimensional people. Mostly, I miss having a common set of facts that we all agree on, but that's not the fault of the pandemic. I'd say my only joy right now is throwing advance fee scammers under the bus and having all their accounts shut down. How's it going for you?
We're gonna have to talk about that advanced fee scammer thing. Same here. I've done actually a little bit of travel, family stuff, and felt pretty safe. Double masked on a plane. My dad gave me an N95,
Good.
so yeah. And it looks like hopefully, if the president's right, we'll all be vaccinated in May, and we'll be back in summer. Um, Interestingly, HIMSS, which is the big healthcare conference, now says it's going to be on
Oh,
in
really?
August. Yeah,
In
so
person.
a mix of in person and
And
virtual,
it's
but
a
yeah, in person,
healthcare conference.
and it's a healthcare
There's no
conference. So
irony there at all.
I'm actually curious if folks are listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'd be comfortable going to HIMSS in August. I'd actually love to know because we need to figure out our plans and whether we're going to go.
Is it
Uh,
Orlando?
no, they're going to do it in Vegas, which is
Oh,
always where you want to be in August. So yeah. Anyway, I'm curious if people are
okay.
listening to this and they're like, "Yeah, I want to go." Then that would help me make decisions. And if you want to go to Vegas in August, you might need some mental health check, but that's okay. It's okay. Um, anyway, let's get to the cybery stuff, huh?
The cybery stuff. Okay,
The
let's do that.
cybery stuff. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it was a
Go.
pretty eventful cybery week, I gotta say. There's a number of events stand out. We can dive into any you want. So I think the big news right now, and hopefully everybody knows this. If I'm the first one telling you this, read more news. Exchange servers are being actively exploited right now with a cocktail of four vulnerabilities, 4 0 days, which now
That's a
just
really
patch up for them.
That's a big one. I mean,
This is a big deal.
people have been calling our 800 number and asking for help.
Mhm.
I answer the 800 number, so yay, right here.
That's not the only one. VMware has their vSphere product, and it has a vulnerability that's got a severity rating, 9.8 out of 10, which means even I could exploit it, even though my technical skills are long gone. And miscreants are now searching the internet using Shodan for exposed instances of the product. Excellion, the body count just piling up. Kroger, Singapore Telecom, University of Colorado, and the latest is Qualys, which is the company that has a vulnerability scanning product and service. This is apparently the CLOP ransomware gang. Virginia governor just signed the country's second state privacy law, so it's patterned after California Consumer Privacy Act and GDPR in the EU. China has apparently attacked India's power grid, and this has the attention of the U.S. government. They think that China is sending a clear signal that they will use tools like that. A company named Recorded Future, which is kind of like us, published how they detected this, and China is pretty enraged about that publication. And with one side of their mouth, they're yelling at Recorded Future about this, and with the other, they are continuing to warn India. So this bears watching. Cyber mercenaries are being engaged more frequently for corporate espionage and crime. It's almost becoming its own sector now. There is a nationwide network of automated license plate readers that has been quietly rolled out and tracks movement, and law enforcement is buying data to surveil people even when they're out of their jurisdictions. There's a federal bill on deck right now that would compel mandatory breach reporting for the private sector. And my favorite, Solarwinds executives went in front of the Senate last week, blamed an intern for the use of the password SolarWinds123, and there's a whole bunch of backstory behind that. So you want to dive into any of those?
Oh, I think we should. Before we do, hey, I watch Dukes of Hazzard, and I know that when you cross the county line, police can't follow.
That's right.
Because I learned it from Dukes of Hazzard, which I think is a great defense in court. Don't you think?
Do I think that's a great defense in court? No, I don't. I think that is the legality of it. Jurisdiction is, that's why people flee state lines. That's why if somebody's a flight risk, that's what they think they're going to do.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, we're getting people are chatting here and saying, HIMSS is tons of fun, especially in Vegas. I know. I don't know that people will show up, but looks like somebody wants to go. It's a tough call. I don't know. And yeah, Vegas is fun. It seems so weird to want to be around people, like so many people. Anyway, whatever. Let's get back to cyber.
And it's a health sector conference. You can't buy irony like that, man.
You can't. HIMSS will just charge you about $50,000 to sponsor. So, but let's talk about that exchange thing. Like I said, the phones are lighting up. People are having all sorts of issues. What do people need to know, Mike?
So first, it only applies to Exchange if it's on premise. So, Microsoft 365 products, Exchange in the cloud, not affected, which is different if you have Exchange that you've mounted, like on a virtual server in AWS or something like that. You better check that out. But the 365 products are not vulnerable. So for what were 0-day vulnerabilities, and I think first detection was January 6th, being exploited in a chain that gives access to email and the ability to drop tools for persistence. And there's apparently a good deal of sophistication that went into developing the exploit, but it's kind of easy to pull off, once all that's been developed. So Microsoft is calling this group Hafnium, which is much better than Rabid Kitten or something like that. But I will point out, if we keep naming these groups using elements, we can only identify 192 of them without creating new ones in nuclear reactors or particle accelerators.
What?
Chemistry joke, sorry. To continue, Hafnium primarily targets entities in the United States across a number of industry sectors. So we're talking about stealing property from infectious disease research and government writ large, law firms, higher education, right? University of Colorado, policy think tanks, stuff like that. Initially, and this is developing right now, the thought would be that if you're not one of those types of organizations, you're probably not being targeted, right? Because initially we would say this is very highly targeted. But it's being reported this morning in dark reading that there may be multiple groups involved with different motivations. So again, what looks like espionage and the theft of intellectual property today may be extortion tomorrow. So everybody patch and patch now. The best information on this is on Microsoft's security blog, which you can find with Google or search engine, and check out Dark Reading today for this multiple actors story.
Ooh, so if this is a Chinese group, stealing secrets, intellectual property, there's no danger of ransomware then, right? We've talked about the cross-pollination between governments and criminals. Do you think they give the tools over to criminals at that point? Or are you saying they've already done that? What are we worried about here?
I don't know. It's a little unclear. That's a good question. So unsure if they gave their tools up to criminals for plausible deniability, right? Hey, everybody's getting ransomware, so it wasn't us, it was criminals. Or there's just other groups operating with the same knowledge. Regardless, less espionage and more extortion if you don't get patched. That's the
Yeah,
take-home message right there.
yeah. I mean, you get a patch quickly. A long time ago, we talked about, Nigerian hackers were doing something, but you thought it was actually Russia that had given the tools to Nigeria. So
Hmm.
not unheard of to go cross border. Anyway, I mean, do you think on the exchange thing, do you think like should do an urgent panel on it? Do you think we need to, get in front of it with folks here?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty straightforward. There's a vulnerability being exploited. The patch is out now, so get patched before you hit the top of the victim list. Someone might bring it up in the office hours thing we want to start doing, but that's not for a while, and you should be patched by then. So, if you're not patched by then, you shouldn't be listening to me talk. You should be patching.
Yeah, and Mike's office hours. So we talked about this a little bit before, but we now actually have a date and registration page and stuff. Uh, so what we're going to do is, Mike sent out the blast, his morning email for a dozen years, and we're going to get folks together, and anybody who's listening to this is welcome to join. And we're going to talk about, whatever folks want to talk about. And we're calling it Mike's office hours. I'm going to probably bring some other people, so it's not just Mike. But come bring your questions. And we're if people don't have a ton of questions, we're going to hit a topic. What topic were we hitting for the first one again?
That would be the third-party elephant in the room, supply chain security. Ideas on how to manage it, products that are coming out to meet that market, and where this is all likely to go if we fast forward the current trends.
Yay. So
When is it?
uplifting. I thought we were going to talk. Never mind. It's Tuesday the 16th. So let's get to, and I'll put the link in the chat here. And if folks are interested, also you can just email me, jake@ci.security. SolarWinds. You mentioned SolarWinds before. What's up with them?
So I said there was a backstory. So I've been talking to some folks in the media about this, and there's a script that they obtained apparently a long time ago. Somebody grabbed from GitHub, like 2017, that has the crappy password coded into it. Okay, so what it looks like to me, and I've talked to some other people about this, it looks like it's a script that they use to update their products from an update server that uses FTP. Okay, so it uses username SolarWinds, password SolarWinds123. So interesting thing number one is that if this is a script for customers to run to update SolarWinds products, it's not likely that the password is the work of an intern, like the executives told the US Senate. But set that aside. Interesting thing number two is that a researcher obtained the script and tested it and found that the FTP server had given the user SolarWinds read and write access to the FTP server. So for those not familiar, this means that user SolarWinds with password SolarWinds123 was able to replace the binaries that were being downloaded by customers to update their products. So now I don't know if that is the smoking gun, but that gets a wow.
Nah. Oh yeah. I mean, holy.
That's perfect, Jake.
I haven't seen that story. Where is it from?
It really hasn't hit the media yet, and I think there's still some kind of fact checking going on. So, but we don't have to do that here. We can be as hyperbolic and as theoretical as we want, right? Isn't that what you told me? Yeah. So you have to believe the researcher. That's a little bit of a stretch. You have to believe this person's claims kind of at face value. And I've read the email chain with this person explaining to a member of the media, and it's a bit hard to interpret. English was not this person's first language, but it sure looks like he was able to put a file onto the SolarWinds FTP server. Now, that doesn't do anything about the cryptographic signature that it had to pass when they actually went to do the install of that binary, and that's where all the work probably went into it, making sure that it would pass that cryptographic check. But getting the weaponized version of the Orion product out to all the customer base seems to have been quite simple.
That's my answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll find out if it's true, or maybe we won't. I mean, who knows? But don't be so hyperbolic that you go over the edge. But it's not like SolarWinds has been forthcoming with everything.
Yeah.
All right, so we're closing in on time here. I have to ask, what were you throwing under the bus for recreation? What? Huh?
So maybe this isn't a familiar term to a lot of people, but advance fee scammers, right? The ones that, right, Nigerian princes, the ones that offer millions of dollars out of the blue, engage gullible people, and extract money from them to pay for non-existent bribes, paperwork filing, stuff like that. And it takes a lot of forms. But I have a very old email account that I've had since the late 80s that is a magnet for the stuff. So what I do is I engage to see if their email account is still valid, right? They generally use a reply. It'll look like it comes from United Nations or something like that. And you reply, and you're replying to a Gmail address or a Yahoo address or something like that. So if it doesn't bounce, right? So they haven't taken down the account yet. Gather all the mail headers and send them to the abuse address. Tell them this is an advance fee scam using Gmail email, or Yahoo or whoever, MSN, and have them shut down the account. So there. Yes, it makes me very happy to do that. Yes.
Does Google actually respond? Do they do it?
Sometimes they respond. Well, there's a couple of the services that say, "Hey, we received this from you," but most of the time they just, they got to be getting hundreds of thousands of these a month probably, and that's a lot of work.
Sure.
So I don't expect them to talk back to me, but I do expect them to shut the account down.
Well, making the world a safer place every day. All right, what do you want to leave people with?
So it's not really too much funny in the cyber news this week, but I think it's interesting that cyber activism continues, and I think this is going to tick up. So the latest victim is Gab, which is kind of turned into a right-wing and conspiracy echo chamber. There is a group that's kind of like WikiLeaks, and they made off with 70 gigabytes of passwords, private messages, and more. And all that has been made available to journalists, just like Parler was. Yes, Donald Trump's password and messages were part of that, but we already had his password from Twitter. So, again, this is not funny, but I think it's a sign of the times that the activism, and I'm sure it's going to be two-sided pretty quickly here, is ticking up. And, doxing, for lack of a better term, organizations and people, to make things public is going to continue. This is not going away.
Well, that was really uplifting and happy. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Before we go, you're going back to travel. Somebody posted here. People will be traveling in droves.
I've never been in a drove.
You have. You've been.
Is it comfortable?
It is. Every time you go to a large conference, that's a drove.
That's a drove.
Somebody drove you to the drove. A plane drove you to the drove. I don't know.
Pilot drove me.
Yeah, I miss traveling too. So folks, do me a favor. If you think you're going to go to him, shoot me an email. It's jake@ci.security. I'm curious to hear what people have to say as we make our HIMSS plan, and HIMSS, demands money from us to find out. So I'd love to know. All right. So remember, security awareness training is next Friday, not tomorrow. It's every second and fourth. Oh, by the way, one of our articles on remote work is like #1 on Bing, and the state of West Virginia sent it out to all their privacy folks. So,
is that right?
Yeah, and now they're inviting people to security awareness training, which is cool.
Cool. Oh, good.
Yeah, state of West Virginia is a lot better on vaccines than Washington. So hey, happy to talk to them. And then Mike's office hours are Tuesday the 16th. The link is earlier in there. I think that's it. Wow, that was a lot of stuff.
There was a lot of stuff.
Oh, all right. Well, stay
Maybe it'll be a
safe,
quiet
everybody.
week next week.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it'll be a quiet week. It's always a quiet week around you.
What?
All right. Jokes at Mike's expense, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.